Good evening, everybody.
Kavod Haraf, how are you?
Baruch Hashem.
Oh, Hashem.
So tomorrow we have a fast day, 17th of Tammuz. Starts in the morning about 4 o'clock, depending on your area, and it ends 20 minutes after sundown. Okay. Okay, so we're going to Yud Chet 18. So it says the truth like this. That's talking about, he says, most people, right? The majority, whatever you want to call it. אבל מי שיש לו מדרש קבוע בתוך ביתו, look what he says, interesting, right? If he has a study room in his house, where he lives, he's got over there a midrash, a little room there that he studies there. שלומד בו, מצווה להתפלל בו. So he says it's a mitzvah to pray there. So there is an opinion like this, that if a person has like a special room where he learns there, it's a mitzvah to pray there. Even if he doesn't have 10 people. Right, so even without a minyan. The Rabbi Ameh, Rabbi Yaseh, because these two rabbis, so even though there was over there in Tveria 13 synagogues, they were only playing this place, where they were learning there. What does that mean? They were playing in the Bet HaMidrash, right, in the study hall. So it says Abaye, he says, in the beginning, I was learning in my house and I was praying in the synagogue. But it says, once I heard this teaching of these rabbis, שחרב בית המקדש אין לו הקדוש ברוך הוא בעולמו אלא עד האדמות של ההלכה. So here's the thing, right? Why he's explaining to you why it's such a big mitzvah to pray in a place where you study. So he says, because it says in the Talmud that since the Beit HaMikdash was destroyed, right, Hashem only likes the place where you're learning halakha over there. So where is he learning halakha? Where he learns all day, where he studies all day. So that's considered to be the makom shechina, makom of the divine presence, the place of divine presence. So therefore, he says, this rabbi, that now I'm studying in my study hall, my study room, because that's the most important place. And that what she, right, this pasuk says that Hashem loves the gates of Zion. We call out Mishkanot Yaakov from all the gates of from all dwellings of Yaakov. אמר הקדוש ברוך הוא, אוהב אני שערים המצוינים בהלכה. So Hashem says, I love the places where they're studying halakha. Right? Mikol bate knesiyot. I love them more than all the synagogues. ולא מצלנה אלא בני עמודי. So it says, therefore, that's why I'm praying in the place where I study. Right? But however, right, nevertheless, says Danielov katav b'tshuva, but the Rosh says in a tshuva, שאלה, טוב להתפלל עם הציבור בעשרה, כל זמן תפילה לחוד, בזמן תורה לחוד. So the Rosh says, it's good to pray, in a synagogue with 10 people, because prayer is one thing and learning is another thing. וגם אין תורתנו כל כך אומנותנו. So he says also, we're not really so much, learning all day Torah. That's not our profession, that we, like we're totally devoted to it. ובהרבה שעות ביום אנו מבטלים נבטל תורתנו בשעת תפילה. So he says, there's a lot of hours that we're just like, not really learning. We're doing other things. ונשלם אותה בשעות אחרות. So therefore, he says the proper thing to do, the good thing to do is, he says, to go to the synagogue anyway. ונצא ידיך בתינו בתורה ובתפילה. So this way, we do both, right? We do prayers and we do Torah. וגם אין תלמיד חכם מתפלל עם הציבור, ילמדו אחרים קל וחומר ממנו, ולא יחושו על התפילה. Look what he says, another thing he says, right? If the Talmid Chacham doesn't come to the synagogue, so what's going to be is that other people are going to learn from him and say, oh, you see, this rabbi doesn't come. So if he doesn't come, we don't have to come either. But that's not true. Why? Because the rabbi is learning Torah in his house, and that's why he's not coming. But what does it have to do with you? You're just a regular guy. Right? So that's why he says, better to come. Says, therefore, what's going to be is that if the people hear, that the rabbis don't come to the shul, so nobody's going to come, and then the Bet Knesset is going to be empty. So the Rosh says, because of these reasons, right, better to come to shul. So he says, what's going to happen? That these people who see the rabbi is not coming, they're not going to judge him favorably. They're going to say, oh, that rabbi, he doesn't come to the minyan. What's wrong with him? Right? What? We're better than he is. What kind of rabbi is he? Right? He doesn't show up. We show up. Right? So they're not going to realize, oh, yeah, well, the rabbi is learning Torah. That's why he's not coming. They're not going to realize all that. So they're going to miss the point. You know what I mean? So the Rosh seems to be saying, right, that, yeah, okay, the truth is, technically speaking, a rabbi who's learning all day, and, he's got that little room in his house that he studies Torah all day there, he should really be, praying over there, because that's where the Shekhinah is, the divine presence is over there, the place where he learns halakha. But says the Rosh, anyway, practically speaking, it's a good idea the rabbi should come also to the shul, because otherwise, there's going to be a lot of misconceptions going on there. Right, so this kind of like answers your question, by the way, from yesterday, Buria, that asked this question. Are there exceptions to the rule? So you see, right, that there are exceptions to the rule. Sometimes a rabbi is exempt because he's learning Torah all day in his little room over there in his house, So there are things like that. So, it really depends on the situation, whatever, right? So, there's what to talk about. So it says, okay, that's the end of the tour. Let's go to Bet Yosef. Yeah. So it says Bet Yosef. Adeleel Kai says it's going up what we said above. We already said yesterday, right, that a person should try to pray always in the shul. Imat Tzibur, with the community. The Alzeh, right, Gilgel Kama Dinet Tfilat Bet Knesset Ve'ashta Kama. So regarding this, right, he now is doing some elaboration on that, right? Elaborating. When does it apply? When doesn't it apply? so forth and so on. Now he qualifies it and says, oh, that which I told you yesterday, that you have to pray in the shul, with the minyan, we're talking about the masses, the regular people, right? The riffraff people, excuse my expression. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to insult anybody. I don't want to mean to insult anybody, but right. But somebody who has a midrash, right? What does that mean? He's learning in his house, and he's sitting there all day, and learning. Right? So the truth is, it doesn't say here that he's learning all day there. It just says that he learns there. Like on a fixed basis. It's a fixed thing by him. He learns there. That's his place to learn. So and what does that mean? He learns halakha over there, right? Because we said halakha is the main thing. You see from there, by the way, that the most important thing, the Gemara says, to learn is halakha. More than anything else. Why is that? Because in the Galut, when Jewish people are in exile, Hashem only comes to the places where they learn halakha there. So no wonder we're learning halakha, right? We have this class, Baruch Hashem. We already did 164 classes, so that's what we're doing, and halakha is a very important thing. Especially when you learn it in depth, not just like, Kitzur books, like these short versions, just reading, this is allowed, this is not allowed. Yeah, okay, tell me, why, when, who said that, tell me the sources, tell me the opinions. That's how we learn it, we learn it more deep. We go more deep into it. That's the way it should be. Okay, whatever, right? So anyway.
Rabbi, why do yeshivot spend most of the time like doing Gemara compared to, for example, Bet Yosef?
I'm sorry, what was that again?
Why do yeshivot spend most of their learning in Gemara instead of Bet Yosef?
Because oh boy, we're gonna get into a big discussion now. You ready? Hold on to your seats. Hold on. So you don't fall off. Okay. So the truth is, that this whole big discussion about this, if you look in the writings of the Gaon of Vilna, right, he talks about this issue. How is a person supposed to study, so forth and so on. And the truth is, that even if you don't have the Gaon of Vilna, look in the Shulchan Aruch, see what it says there in Laws of Talmud Torah, and you're there. So if you look over there, right, you see what's going on, how a person is supposed to learn. You know what I mean? So the truth is that the sages have said that the most important learning is halakha. But, right, what does that mean? What that means is that as we said, you're learning halakha in depth. You know what I mean? With sources, Gemara, Rishonim, like we do here in the Bet Yosef. You know what I mean? Like that. So when you learn Bet Yosef, you're learning everything. You're learning Gemara, you're learning Rishonim, you're learning Shulchan Aruch, you're learning the whole thing from top to bottom. So this is the thing, so Bet Yosef includes everything. And the Gaon of Vilna says this is the proper way to learn halakha. You know why? Because when you learn Talmud, the whole point of the Talmud is get to the halakha. But if you don't get to the halakha, you just like play a chess game, with Gemara, checkmate, checkmate. I won, I said something better than you. Ha 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 ha. Very good. Okay, very good. That's not the point of learning Gemara, to outwit your friend. The point is to get to halakha. So learning Talmud means learning Bet Yosef. That's what it really means. The proper way to learn Talmud is to learn Bet Yosef. But the thing is that a person, who doesn't have the fundamentals, hasn't learned the Gemarot yet, so he should go, and learn those Gemarot. That's why we have, Baruch Hashem, we have Daf Yomi, we have all kinds of things. We're learning Gemara. But the way the yeshivot do it, right? Now you're talking about the Ashkenazi yeshivot, right? Really, they're the ones who made the system of learning Talmud all day. So this system, Maran Rabbi he said it should only be used until a person gets married, because until that point, in other words, around the age of 18, 19, that's what we mean when we say getting married. Until he's like 18, 19, he should learn Talmud like most of the day. Why? Because this way he'll sharpen his mind, and he'll get the skills of how to learn properly, Once he passes that point, gets married, so then the rabbi used to say, you should go to Kollel and learn Bet Yosef, you know what I mean? Which also includes Gemara, by the way. We learn the Gemara also. There's all kinds of things there going on. But anyway, the point is, right, that the real way to learn Talmud is to learn with the halakha, to get to the halakha. Like the rabbi used to say, he used to make a joke about that. He used to say, "Oh, what are you learning? Just Gemara without halakha?" So he says, "What if somebody comes and asks you, okay, what's the halakha?" So we're going to tell them it's machloket between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Meir. Oh, thank you very much. Okay, what should I do then? I don't know. This is what they're learning. You know what I mean? In the yeshivot. It's a machloket. Okay, very good. What's the halakha? I don't know. Go ask a posek, right? They tell you. Go ask a Rabbi, go ask Motz. Go ask a Motz. Yeah, okay, Motz.
It seems to me.
Okay, so okay, I got that. So, the bottom line is like this, the proper way to learn the whole point of the Talmud is to get to halakha. That's the whole idea, So, and the way they do it, unfortunately, in the yeshivot, it's really not the best way to do it, although it has its purpose. In other words, a person should go to like a yeshiva like that, the rabbi used to say about 3-4 years, and get his learning skills down. We're talking about the ideal thing, the person started learning when he was a kid. You know what I mean? He's not a Baal Tshuva, right? That's something else. We're not talking about that. But the ideal thing is like this, until he's like 18 years old, he goes and learns Talmud, and at night, as a third seder, he learns halakha, he learns Bet Yosef, whatever, right? As a third for the night. But the first two study sessions, he learns Talmud until he gets to the age of 18. So in Parat Yosef, in the Sephardi Yeshiva in Yerushalayim, that's what they do. Once they get to the age of 18, they start learning Bet Yosef. Whether they're married or not, doesn't make any difference. They start already, because if you don't start by the age of 18, when are you going to finish? What's going to happen with you? How long is it going to take you to finish the whole Bet Yosef? As we said, right? We told the ladies over here, they asked us, when are we going to finish everything? So I told them, we'll be by the Social Security by then. You know what I mean? I'll show you my Social Security card. I'm getting my pension already. Whatever, right? That's what we're talking about. So learning the whole Bet Yosef from beginning to end, Shulchan Aruch, it's about 20 or 30 years, depending on the speed that you go. So if you don't start by the time you're 20, whatever, right? When are you going to finish? When are you going to, what I mean? Rabbi Yosef, the chief rabbi, he used to tell us a joke about this. He said there was one Rosh Yeshiva, who all his life he learned Talmud, like they all do in yeshivot, you know what I mean? They all do the Talmud there. So he says then, once he became 70 years old, the Rosh Yeshiva, 70, So then he started to learn Bet Yosef, So the rabbi told us like a little bit too late, 70 years old, like how much are you going to cover when you're 70 years old? You know what I mean? That's not the way to do it. So this is the wrong approach, basically, right? The way the Ashkenazim do it. And even their rabbis, by the way, the Gaon Avina, who was the great rabbi, they didn't learn like that. This was not the way they learned, doing like, just doing pilpulim in Gemara, just like doing intellectual exercises. This is not the proper way to learn. There's a place for that, few years, 3-4 years. Once you're done with that, you get your skills, right? Then you got to go learn halakha. This is the way to do it. This is the proper way. Okay, any more questions? I hope you got that.
All good, Rabbi. Thank you.
Okay, God bless. So let's go on. So we're going to do Bet Yosef. Here we go. So we already started, but we'll continue here. And the alternative says that which he relied on, right? We already said yesterday that a person has to try with all his might, to learn with the tzibur, right? To pray with the tzibur. So now it comes and tells you that only applies to the regular guys. But somebody who has a midrash in his house, he learns there, right? So it's mitzvah to pray there more by himself than to go to the shul. Because of this Gemara that we brought, like it says over there in first parak of Brachot, says Rabbeinu Yonah, but I told you guys yesterday, that nevertheless, right, all this that we're saying, Maran Rabbi Shalom, always I saw him, he used to come to every minyan. So for him, going to a minyan was like 100%. He never missed a minyan. I mean, no matter what it was, and he was the biggest learner. So I guess he was concerned about the words of the Rosh. If he wouldn't come to minyan, the rabbi, so what would they say? People, if he doesn't come, why should we go? So they're gonna say, okay, then nobody's gonna go. We'll all sit at home and we'll make our bet midrash at home. That's not the way it works, right? It doesn't work like that. So that's why I guess the rabbi was very vehement about that, to always come to the beginning. Something really funny, I'll tell you, that when I first met the rabbi, this was like, I don't know what it was, 25 years ago, right? He had a certain car that the chauffeur used to drive him in. It was like a Mercedes, like an S-Class, one of the nice big Mercedes. So somebody donated that to him. He didn't buy it himself. He wouldn't buy a Mercedes. He never would do that. Somebody donated it to him. So what happened was that one day, I remember, they broke in. Some robbers came in, and they broke into his house, and they broke into his car. Some kind of robbery went on. So what happened was that when that robbery had occurred, it was like late night or something, whatever. So they called the police. The police came. They made like a report, whatever, and everything. And what happened was that because of that, they couldn't do the minyan in his house. That whatever. So I remember the rabbi, even then, when they couldn't do the minyan in his house, he came to Yechavadat, which was the place that I was learning in, and they made a minyan over there. So he came especially, to pray in the minyan over there. They made a special minyan for him. So even when he got robbed, the rabbi still went to minyan. So I can tell you, right, that he was very concerned about that, right? I guess what it says in the Rosh over here. But anyway, right, the halakha is the halakha. In other words, whoever wants to rely on this for whatever reason, let's say he's not a famous rabbi, people don't know about him so much. You know what I mean? So if he doesn't come to shul, people don't really pay attention anyway. Nobody cares, He's like, and he's an anonymous rabbi. So he's very anonymous. Nobody knows where he is. So then it's okay, maybe, because nobody's going to really pay attention anyway. Nobody's going to be concerned about that. But if it's a famous rabbi, everybody knows him, and he doesn't come to minyan, then it's going to be like, oh my God. It's going to be a scandal there, right? Scandal. Okay. So you got to, figure things out. Katav Rabbeinu Yonah, says Rabbeinu Yonah, so it says the rabbis of France explained, Shafilu belo asara ayu osin ken. They used to do this even if they didn't have a minyan. They would pray at home where they were learning there. Right? Oh. So why is that? Because it's more proper to pray in a place, even if you're alone, which is the place that you learn Torah there. You have like a fixed schedule of Torah. Yomam v'layla, right? Day and night. Oh, Yomam v'layla, day and night, right? So in other words, we see, right, that we're talking about somebody who's learning, on a large scale, day and night. Not just somebody, who once in a while, picks up a book, and for a half hour. That's not really, we're not talking about that. Right? He's doing some serious learning over there, right? That's what we're talking about. Day and night. Okay. So, but now he brings the Rambam, right? As I told you guys the other day, the Rambam says that even the rabbi should come to the shul. He says like this, Katav, בפרק ח' מהלכות תפילה, he writes over there, והוא שיתפלל עם תפילת הציבור. So that's only if he prays with a minyan, כלומר בעשרה. ואם תאמר, אם כן, אם you tell me, מהי רבותא דבית המדרש, then you can tell me what's the big thing about בית מדרש, right, where you learn. שירת רבינו explains, he answers, שאף על פי שבית הכנסת היו מתקבצים הרבה בני אדם, so it means like this, right, that even though in the shul, there's a lot of people coming there, it's a big minyan, ורוב עם הדרת המלך, and therefore it's more of a mitzvah to pray in a place where there's a bigger minyan. There is a mitzvah like that, to go to a bigger minyan. But nevertheless, right, if you're in a bet midrash, אפילו הכי, אם היו רוצים יותר בעשרה בלבד בבית המדרש, להתפלל בבית הכנסת עם רוב העם. But he says, if you can do it in a bet midrash where you study there, and it's a smaller minyan, it's okay. Why? Because it's bet midrash, it's a holy place. It's a place where you learn halakha. So that's the thing. Okay. He writes further, שאפילו לדעת הרמב"ם, even according to Rambam, אין צריך עשרה אלא למי שדרכו ללכת ומייתו ללמוד. Oh, it says, look what Rabbi Yonah says. He says something interesting about the Rambam. He says that even according to Rambam, right, you don't really need 10 people unless מי שדרכו ללכת ביתו בית ללמוד כמקום אחר. Unless he goes to Bet Midrash, to learn there in a certain like public Bet Midrash, public study hall. Because since it's his way to stop learning for a while until he goes and prays, until he goes there, I'm saying not prays, but he goes and studies there. So therefore, right, the person like that who's going to a public Bet Midrash, a public study hall, so then he should pray with a minyan over there, right? Or to go to the shul. But he says somebody who learns in his house all day, right? That's his fixed place to learn. And also, that's what we said, right? He learns all day. He doesn't have any other profession, He's not a dentist, he's not a he's not an accountant or whatever, right? He's not a bank manager, right? He doesn't do anything. That's all he does. All he does is learns. So somebody like that, he shouldn't go to shul, he says. Look what it says, interesting, right? He shouldn't go to shul. If he doesn't find 10 people, why? Because it's bitul Torah for him. He says, look, interesting, right? Incredible. It's bitul Torah. He's stopping learning Torah to go to minyan. Not worth it, according to this. Because all the time that he has to go back and forth, so he says, therefore, it's good for him to pray by himself than to stop learning and go to some minyan. Okay.
But we did say he has to stop learning to do morning prayers, though, right?
I'm sorry?
We
He
did
has
say
to
before,
pray, right? That's for sure. Yeah, he has to pray.
and he has to stop learning to pray.
Yes, that he has to do. But going to minyan is already beyond. But here's the interesting thing, right? That in theory, though, what you're asking about, there is a Gemara like this, right? It says Rabbi Yehuda. I told you already several times, maybe to people who know me. It says in the Gemara, he would learn all the Torah, review the whole Torah from A to Z, and then he would pray once a month. So he prayed only once a month. So what does that mean? A person who's like really that strong in learning, he never stops learning. Like he's like a learning machine, never stops. So somebody like that, like Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai, right? People like this, they're exempt from prayers altogether. You know what I mean? So therefore, Rabbi Yehuda used to pray once a month. But in our generation, we're not on that level. So we don't really rely on this heter, right? Hopefully one day we'll get to that level, soon. B'ezrat Hashem. People will be on that level. But right now, I don't think we're holding there yet. What do you call it? Even the Rabbi Maran Avshalom himself, he used to pray all the prayers, He never missed, as I told you, he never missed minyan. All the more so, he never missed prayers. But what do you call it? What I want to say that, the rabbi told us one time, right? How do you know if you're really on that level, right? That you're absolved from praying. How do you know you reach that threshold? Right? So he told us one time something interesting. He said, if you're learning Torah, right? Let's say, and some like big donor comes, to donate money to you, to your synagogue, right, or to your yeshiva, to your kollel. So if you reject him and say, oh, you know what, I don't want to, I can't talk with him now. I'm sorry, I'm learning. So if you're on that level that you won't even talk to somebody who wants to donate money, says then you're holding on that level. Otherwise, you're not holding there. So which one of us can say, right? Let's say a guy comes to, give us $1 million check, right? So we can open up a big yeshiva, big kollel. What are you going to do? Send him back home? Right. I don't think we're on that level today. Okay. So then now he brings the opinion of the Rosh, right? Which we already saw also in the tour. And he just brings the place where it's written there. Right? Right. So look what he says, right? That exactly what your question was, right? Do you stop learning for prayers, right? That's the question. He says the Torah writes about this in chapter 106. So we'll get there, B'ezras Hashem, pretty soon. Hang in there, and we'll get there pretty soon, B'ezras Hashem. Maybe before Rosh Hashanah, we'll already be there. So okay, very good. Let's see Shulchan Aruch 18. Yeah, here we are. Right. So it says like this. Bet Midrash Kavua, right? If you have a Bet Midrash, that's a place where you study. And it's Kavua, right? What does that mean? You're always learning there. You have like a fixed schedule every day. Kavua. Kadosh Yoter Bet Knesset. It's more holy than a synagogue, right? It has more holiness. So therefore he says it's a mitzvah to pray there more than the synagogue, right? But you should pray there with a minyan, as we said, right? That if he's going to a public one, especially, there should be minyan there. There usually is, right? When you go to a public bet midrash, there's usually minyan there. But as we said, right? Also, if he's learning in his house and there's no minyan there, he has what to rely on. If he wants to pray there, a guy like that, a rabbi like that, Hamid Chacham, he has what to rely on. But, as we said, right, there's a little bit of a machloket there. Some say it's not so proper to do that, as we saw in the Rosh. That's why the Shulchan Aruch says there should be a minyan. It's better, Okay, as we said, right, there's also the explanation of Rabbeinu Yonah we saw. Rabbeinu Yonah says what we said, that there's a minyan, applies only if you're in a public one. But if you're in your house, you don't need a minyan. That's what he says. So, there's all different ways of interpreting that. So here's the Ramah, right? The Ramah says, so he brings that opinion, right, that we mentioned. Rabbeinu Yonah, right? That even without a minyan, it's better. But right, it's somebody who learns all day, right? Torah Manuto. That means Torah is his profession. He doesn't have any other profession. He's not a dentist, right? He's not whatever, right? As we said, right? And he's not doing bitul Torah, right? He's not messing around, playing hooky. When he learns, he doesn't take like an hour or two off to go and do something, to go to the beach, or to go to the right to sail across to Manhattan, to sail around Manhattan, whatever, all kinds of nonsense like that, right? A person who's really into Torah, he doesn't take time for things he doesn't go on excursions, He doesn't go bowling. He doesn't go to miniature golf, right? He doesn't do anything like that. Doesn't do anything. So that's what we're talking about. We're talking about a guy like that, right? He's a very serious learner. Okay, so I go.
Rabbi, I have a question.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I just have a question.
Sure.
In regard when we're talking about a time a person is learning, that is able to pray in this place where he's learning. This is not coming to include Shabbat or Yom Tov, right?
Oh, I'm sorry. Include what?
It's not coming to include Shabbat or Yom Tov, right?
Oh no, even Shabbat. Yeah, even Shabbat. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Doesn't really matter. Believe it or not. You know what it says in the Talmud, right? Listen to this. This is in Masechet Megillah. It says over there, the Rabbi Akiva only left the Bet HaMidrash like twice a year. Otherwise, he would never leave. When was that? You know when it was? To hear the Megillah and to do the Haggadah of the Pesach. That's it. Otherwise, he wouldn't leave. It says something like that in the Talmud. So you see that Rabbi Akiva, right, never left in the Bet HaMidrash. He sat for 24 years, right? When his wife sent him off, 24 years he learned like that, non-stop.
Wow.
So it includes even Shabbat and Yom Tov, yes. Okay, very good. Bezrat Hashem, we should get to that level, and then we'll know what it is, right? We'll know what it feels like. God willing. Okay, so let's see the Ramah here. He says, nevertheless, but he says, look, what good advice, right? He brings from the Rosh. He says, you shouldn't, accustom yourself to do this. Not a good idea, right? Like we saw in the Rosh. Why is that? Because people are going to learn from him like that, as we said, right? They're going to say, oh, if this rabbi doesn't come, we also won't come. Okay, we'll stay home, So in order to avoid that problem, right, the person should try to show up. Right? So also, he says another thing, the Ramah, right? When the tzibur is saying slichot in a synagogue, supplications and slichot, he shouldn't be sit and learn there. You know what I mean? At that time, in other words, don't be poresh from the tzibur. Don't separate from the tzibur. So if you want to be there with them together, and then they're doing slichot, you shouldn't learn. But of course, everything has its own, parameters. What I mean to tell you is like this, right? That if you already did slichot, let's say, right, doesn't mean now you should do slichot one more time. It means he didn't do slichot, So if you didn't do, okay, so now do it now. But if you want to go and learn, so then don't do it over there in the room, because you look like you're being poresh. You're separating from them. So go somewhere else, right? Go to your house and learn over there, whatever, right? Some other place. Go to Ashkenazi shul where they have no slichot over there, right? Until the week before Rosh Hashanah. And learn over there, whatever you want to do, right? Whatever it is you want to do. Okay, got it? So that's the story there. Any questions? Whatever, we'll go on otherwise. Okay. Very important halachot here, these halachot. Let's go on to Bet Yosef. It says in Yutat, he brings the tour over here. Right? Let's see this in the tour inside. Right. So it says the tour like this. A person should have a fixed place where he prays, right? A fixed spot, That's my spot. I always pray in one spot. If you guys, ever see me praying in shul, right? You always see, right? I pray in one place. I don't switch places. This is the reason why. You have a fixed spot for that. It says you shouldn't change your place where you pray, unless there's a big need for that. Because Rav Huna says, right? Whoever makes a place for his prayers, Elohei Abraham. Hashem, the God of Abraham, helps him. Then Dailo b'mashi kvalo בית כנסת להתפלל בה תדיר, אלא גם בית הכנסת שקובע בה צריך שיהיה מקומו קבוע. So it's not only you should have a fixed shul to go to, you always go to that shul, only you should have a fixed place in that shul as well. Fixed spot, your spot. וידוע שלא ישב היום כאן ולמחר במקום אחר. So a person shouldn't like switch places, he says, right? You know, one day you sit in the back, one day you sit in the front. What is it with you? What you have some kind of a dual personality? What's going on with you, right? You know, some kind of schizophrenia. Why are you sitting in different places or jumping from one place to another? Musical chairs, right? Stay in one place and pray over there. That's what he's telling you. Okay. ולא ישב היום בכמה מקומות. תאחי, יתמה בירושלמי. That's what it says בירושלמי. אמר רב תנחום ברכיה, צריך אדם לייחד לו מקום בית הכנסת. So he says, right, that a person has to have a place, to fixed place in the synagogue. שנאמר, as it says, ויהי דוד בא עד הראש אשר ישתחווה שם, וישתחווה לו, נאמר על ישתחווה, משמע שהיה תדיר משתחווה שם. So this verse, right, tells you that King David always used to go to one place to prostrate over there, to pray there. ולא ישב מיד אצל הפתח, אלא ייכנס שיעור בית טפחים. Also, he says another thing, you know, which is important to know, that a person shouldn't sit by the door, you know, with the entrance when he prays. He should distance himself a little bit from the door. At least 2 tfachim, right, which is about 16 centimeters. Okay, so that's already something else. Let's go to Beit Yosef. It says Beit Yosef, he brings the place, right, where we learn these halachot. Perek Kama de Brachot. In the first perek of Brachot, Daf Vav Amud Bet. That's where it is. And he goes on, ואין די לו במה שכתבה בו בית כנסת שתתפלל בו יחיד. כן כתב השם הראש, אז הראש says also this, וזה לשונו, לא בא אלה ממר שיהיה רגיל להתפלל בית כנסת אחד. Not only you should be praying in one synagogue, right? I don't need to tell you that. אבל, אם הוא מתפלל באחד משתי מקומות, שפי יודמה. Right? But if he prays in like 1 or 2 places, it's okay. Jamina בירושלמי, we said ירושלמי בפרק תפילת השחר, אמר רב תנחום ברכיה, צריך אדם לייחד לו מקום. A person has to have a unique place for prayers, designated place. בית הכנסת שנאמר, as it says, ויהי דוד בא עד הראש אשר ישתחווה שם לאלוהים וישתחווה, לא נאמר אלא ישתחווה, וכן כתבו הגאון מימוניות. They also bring this verse, right, from Shmuel Bet, that we saw before, that David will come to one place to bow over there, to prostrate over there. וכן כתבו הגאון מימוניות, says also there, פרקי, ודלו כרבנו יונה, like Rabbi Yonah, שכתב, he writes, הקובע מקום לתפילתו, a person who makes a praise for his prayers, אלוהי אברהם בעזרו, the God of Abraham helps him, לא אמרו זה במקומות של בית הכנסת, says they were not talking about the places of the synagogue, דכיוון שכולם מקום תפילה, because since it's all one place of prayer, and להקפיד, so it says we're not really so particular. So this opinion is a little bit different than what we said before. אם יושב פעמים בזווית זו, פעמים בזווית זו. So he says it's not a big problem, you know. One time he's over here, one time he's over there. אלא רצה לומר שקובע מקום לתפילתו בביתו. So it means like in his house, he says, right? If he's praying in his house, then he makes a special place to pray there. שפעמים שאינו יכול ללכת בבית כנסת. So it's because sometimes he can't go to the shul. מתפלל בביתו, so he prays in his house. ומייחד מקום, and he fixes a place in his house, fixed place. לכך, right, for that purpose, עד כאן לשון, that's the end of it. וכיוון הראש והגוג מסכימים לדעת אחד. So since these 2 rabbis agreed to the same idea, הכי נקטינה. Says Beit Yosef, this halacha. So let's go to Shulchan Aruch and we'll see, right, how he paskins there. Okay. So, okay, so says Shulchan Aruch, יקבע מקום לתפילתו. A person should have a fixed place for his prayers. שלא ישנהו אם לא לצורך, right? You shouldn't change it unless there's a need for that. By the way, when is there a need something to change your place? You know when it is? Anybody have any ideas?
When you're not facing east.
Well, that means you have to. All that means you have to turn around. But what about changing the place? When does a person need to change his place?
If you moved from your house, no?
I'm sorry?
From your house, you mean?
We're talking
If you
about the
moved-
synagogue.
Oh, in a synagogue. Oh.
Yeah.
When the wall
When does he need to change his place?
Isn't it when the wall collapses?
Oh my God.
The-
Well, I'm not talking about something like that. That's not really very common, but you know what I'm talking about? I'll give you as an example, okay?
To give it up to someone who has a greater honor.
I'm sorry, what was that again?
To give your space to someone who has the greater honor.
Ooh, that's very interesting.
Give,
I wasn't thinking about that, but I'll tell you what I was thinking about, okay? Because we had a situation in our shul, okay? And I'll tell you, in a situation like this, a person really should change his place. And don't be stubborn. So what does that mean? That sometimes what happens is, right, that two people are sitting like close to each other, okay? Like one is in front and one is in the back. And the way this guy prays, it bothers the other guy. You know what I mean? So they get into a rift, like rifts, they start arguing. Why'd you come to my place? You sit here, you bother me. Go somewhere else. Start fighting. I remember there was a real story like this in my shul. They started to fight. And they came to me, they said, Rabbi, am I right? Who's right? Am I right or is he right? And I was like, give me a break, guys. Like, can you make peace with each other? Make peace, So in order to make peace, if there's some kind of a squabble going on like this, you know what I mean? This one says it's my place. This one says I came there first. This one says I came there first. So a person, who's a good soul, you know what he does, right? He just gets up and walks away and goes somewhere else. I mean, don't argue with people about things like this. Don't make problems, arguments, machlokets because of things like this. Pack your bags and go to another place. You know what I mean? What's the big deal? What is it to you? So that's really a need. Another example I'll tell you, which is that, let's say, first I'll give an example, which is like close to what Shoshana was saying, a little bit close. That sometimes what happens is, you come into the shul and somebody's in your place, he already came there and they started to pray already. Right? So what are you going to do now? Ask him to move? Right? You don't have to ask him to move. Just go, and go stand close to him. That's almost like your place. 4 amot, you have 8 feet to 6 feet. So it's almost your place. You don't have to, get into squabbles with people, asking them to move and asking them to change their place. All kinds of, if it comes to that, it's better just to change your place, go somewhere else, have peace of mind. That's what I'm talking about. You know what I mean? But on the other hand, right, if somebody comes, let's say, who's like some kind of a big, big scholar or something, right? You don't really have to give him, you don't have to really give him your place. If that's your place, that's your place. You know what I mean? So, you don't have to tell him, oh, okay, you can take my place. Why should you tell me to take your place? That's your place. You know what I mean? That's what Hashem wants from you, to pray there. But if he already stands there, and he already, so then what are you going to tell him? Oh, please move, Rabbi, Hey, Rabbi, move over. That's my place, It's not nice to do that. So, you have to be a little bit humble, when it comes to these things. Okay, whatever. But if it's not for that, right, for something like that, a person should have a fixed place to pray. Whether it's in the synagogue or it's in the house, whatever it is, right? Same thing. So then he goes on, then so he says it's not enough that he should have like one place to pray, one synagogue, Bet Knesset, right? So he says not only you have to have a fixed synagogue you go to, but also you should have a fixed place in the synagogue. And by the way, nowadays we're all guilty of this. I can't speak for everybody, but right, we go to different shuls all the time. One time you're in this shul, one time you're in that shul. But according to halakha, you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to go to one shul, really. So what can we say about that? How can we maybe justify this, a little bit? So the truth is, that they say, one of the reasons why they say that a person should go to one shul only is because if they don't see him there, they're going to say, oh, look, he's not coming to Minyan. They're going to suspect him, he doesn't come to Minyan. And they're not going to know he went to a different shul, So it causes suspicion sometimes, that they don't see you. They say, oh, where are you? You didn't come this morning? Yeah, I went to a different minyan, whatever. Yeah, you sure? You went to a different minyan? They don't believe you sometimes, they're suspicious of you. So, so the truth is, but what happens is sometimes like this. A person has to go to a different minyan, usually why? Because because of the timing, sometimes the timing doesn't work out. So if it's a matter of timing, like you can't pray because the timing is not good for you there, so you can go to a different minyan, of course, we're not talking about that. But what we're saying is that if a person can go to one shul and be, kavua there, be fixed over there, and be in one place, and it doesn't bother him, the timing, everything, whatever, you should try to do that if you can. That's the thing. But the truth is that nowadays, everybody knows, right, that if you didn't come to one minyan, you probably went to another one, especially in New York City, whatever. And in Israel, there's so many minyanim, hundreds of minyanim. So they're not going to suspect you that you didn't go to minyan. Whatever it is, right?
Also, can't they come to depend on you to make minyan, right?
Right, that's a different story, right? If they're depending on you, right? If they're depending on you, we should try to go there. If that's the case, But it also depends. I mean, you have to use your judgment with that, because sometimes they're depending on you, but it's not a good minyan. Like it's a bad place to pray. People are like, they're clowns over there, a bunch of clowns. So if that's the case, let them depend on you for 5 years. Who cares? Go to a good minyan. If that's a bad minyan, don't help them. So it really depends on the situation. Just how the situation is. You gotta do a cheshbon with that a little bit, a calculation. Speak with your rabbi. Ask your rabbi about it. He'll tell you what to do. Okay, so that's that. Okay, we got like 5 more minutes. Let's see what we can do. Let's go to 20. Chaf. So as we said, right, that the Torah says here that a person, when he goes in to the shul, he shouldn't stand close to the door, right? Go inside. Don't be like right next to the door. So at least 2 tfachim, he says, right? The Torah. Because Rav Chasta said in the Gemara, a person should go in like the size of 2 doors, and then pray, right? Don't pray by the door. As it says, lishmor mezuzot pitchi, right? There's a pasuk that they learn from. Some say it means that you should also wait the time that it takes to walk 2 tfachim, right? A little bit, before you start praying. But it says if he's sitting next to the door, to the doorway, entrance, so we're not concerned according to this opinion. Ve'aram Mirotenburg, right? This rabbi Haya Omer used to say, "Davka kishet knesset ptucha l'rishut harabim." Yeah, that's only if the shul is open to the street. Because he's looking outside, that distracts him. He sees the cars over there and the pedestrians passing by and all kinds of stuff. So therefore, he can't concentrate properly. But if he says if that entrance is not open to the street, shapridam, it's okay. He says why? Because you don't get distracted by that. So he says, but it seems like we shouldn't make this differentiation like this. Because he learns this from the verse. And also, what it says in Yerushalmi, the person should go in, right, 2 doors. My time, what's the reason why? That he brings a different pasuk, right, to prove this. So according to this, he says, it implies that it's not because of the door is open. It also implies that he should actually go the distance of 2 doors, which is 2 tfachim. Okay, that's already something else. Let's see Bet Yosef here. So it says Bet Yosef, he brings the source. Perek Kama de Brachot. The first perek of Brachot, Chet. Perish Rashi explains, Shiur Shnei Ptachim, Rochav Yikanes Lefnim, Shelo Yeshev Samuch Lepetach. You got to go in, as we said, 2 tfachim, so you should be right next to the door. Alad Kemasui. So says Rashi, if you're praying right next to the door, it seems like you don't really like to be there. You want to like run out as fast as possible when you finish. That's why you're right next to the door, Yeah, let me get out of here, when they finish, I'll be the first one to run out. It shouldn't be like that, right? That's what we're saying. By the way, there's also another halacha, which we learn that similar to this, that a person, when he leaves the shul, he's not allowed to run away from the shul. Because it seems like he's running away from the synagogue, it's disrespect. Same thing, So when you get out of the door of the shul, don't start running right away. It seems like you're looking to escape. You feel like you're in prison or something, God forbid, right? What kind of thing is that? You got to be respectful to the shul. Same idea. So then he goes on here. That's right. It says in Orchot Chaim, you should go to the size of 2 doors. So he says it's 8 tfachim, right? The shiur petach echad tidal tfachim, because it says 1 door is 4 tfachim. Katav Rabbeinu Yonah, says Rabbeinu Yonah, v'davka bimehem, it says that was in their times. Shelo haya makom liyuchad lechol echad. Each one didn't have his own particular place in the shul. Aval, it says now achshav shekol echad makir et mekomo. But now, since everybody has their own place in the shul, im yesh lo makom liyuchad. So if he has a place which is designated, it's a petach right next to the door, and bechaklum says that's nothing. Right? In other words, let's say they gave him a chair. His chair happens to be right next to the door, so he says that's okay. Because it's known that he's only sitting there. Why? Because he's there. That's his place. That's his designated place. If he says, according to this, he says a person doesn't have a fixed place right in a place like that. Etzel petach right next to the door. You shouldn't sit there then, if that's the case. So some say, right, it applies really to the timing, not to the distance more. Also, the Rosh brings this, right, that you shouldn't start praying right when you enter the shul. Wait a couple of seconds. So you should wait till you can walk the size of 2 doors. But if he's sitting right next to the door, Shapir Dama, says the Rosh, it's okay. But Yerushalmi, it says, we learn over there, so he says, right, this person who goes into the shul, he has to distance-wise, right, go 2 doors. My time, what's the reason why? So he learns from this pasuk, right, Mishlei, that a person should go in 2 doors, right, before he starts to pray. Goes on. That which you want the name of the Ram. That's what it says. Not go. Maimoniot Chadashot Berachet Milchot Tefillah. It's also written there. Seems like the Ram is explaining the shiur shnei ptachim rochav kamar. He's talking about the width of the 2 doors. Kepirush Rashi, like Rashi explains. Not because of the reason of the Rashi. It says rather the reason is because he's looking outside. And he's not able to concentrate because of that. He says because of this katab so because of that, we only talked about the case where the shul is open to the public area, the street. But if it's not open to the street, then we don't care about it. Rabbeinu writes the true and writes from Yerushalmi. So it implies that he has to go and read 2 doors, size of 2 doors. So he didn't differentiate between it's open to the public domain or not, or it's open to some other place. Not like the Ram. The Gam Mashma Yerushalmi says also implies in Yerushalmi that it's like we learn like the simple meaning of the of the lesson. The shiur rochav shnei petachim kamar. We're talking about the distance, not the time. V'lo sheishesh shiur shnei petachim. K'divrei yesh mefarshim, like the other opinion. V'nin halacha, it says, what's the halacha? Right? Nachon lachush techol haperushim. The proper says to be stringent like all the opinions. So what does that mean? You should wait the time that it takes to walk that much, and also the distance, So try to do both. Okay, let's see Shulchan Aruch and we're done. It says in Shulchan Aruch, a person should go in, right? Enter the size of 2 doors, and then pray. Some say this means 8 tfachim, right? Which is about like 80 centimeters, right? I'm sorry, not 80, 60, right? 68 tfachim. But if we Yosef Petach, you shouldn't sit next to the door because it seems like he has a burden on himself. So he wants to leave right away. Yeshivat Bet HaKnesset. If he says, according to this, but it says, according to this, if he has a special place where he sits there, close to the doorway, in the chakum, we don't care about that. Some explain differently. The reason is because he's looking outside in the street. He can't concentrate. Well, if he says, according to this, it's not open to the public domain, we don't care about that. That's this is second opinion. Some say some say it's a matter of time. Right? Don't be so quick to pray when you come in. Wait like a second or two. You should wait the time that it takes to walk two doorways, right? Which is, as we said, 8 tfachim. So he says the proper thing to do is to be concerned about all of them. So what does that mean? Try to fulfill all these opinions, right? So therefore, right, person going to the synagogue and stay away from the door, right? That's the bottom line. Try to distance yourself a little bit from the door, right? Let's say around about 6 feet, and then you're doing fine. Okay, very good. Thanks for coming. Chazak Baruch. Be blessed with wealth, health, happiness. See you tomorrow, B'ezrat Hashem. Have an easy fast. As I told you, there's a fast tomorrow. Don't forget. And we'll see you tomorrow night. But we have to, when the fast ends, we have to eat. So the question is, when can we do the class? Ooh, that's a good question. Obviously, we can't do it at the regular time. So maybe we'll try to do like at around. I don't know. You know what? We'll try to figure it out tomorrow. I'll text you guys and I'll let you know what we're gonna do. We'll figure something out.
Okay, thank you.
God willing. Okay, very good. So be holy and happy. Stay safe. All the best.
Amen. Thank you.